So that's sort of a starting model. And now I want to open it up to comments and thoughts and questions from anybody who wants to make some comments. So, looking for hands.
I think I raised this last time, but I'll raise it again. I first want to say I think our meeting last Thursday went well. Public comment, especially that seems to work very well. I would suggest we are in a pandemic. I am comfortable for us with that meeting as a hybrid, as we're doing now with some of us here and some of us remote. But I don't see a reason to open the meeting to the public when we have successfully shown that we can take public comment via Zoom and allow the public to comment without providing any encouragement for the public to take any additional risk in their daily life.
Thank you, Dr. Simmons. Other comments? Other thoughts?
I would say I actually agree with what Chair Anderson laid out. I think I feel kind of in unity with our staff and teachers that, you know, if they're having a lot of students in the school, that it doesn't seem unreasonable that we let people come in and make public comment. I mean, I think the reality is that probably most people are still going to want to do it by Zoom. I don't really expect we're going to get a big crowd of people who want to come in if they can make comments by Zoom. But I just think it's kind of symbolic to have that as an option for people.
Thank you. Ms. Brown.
Yes, I would agree with, thank you, Chair Anderson. I agree with Ms. Litton. I think that, you know, as it is a turning point for our school system, and as we begin to welcome, we've already welcomed some students back into the classroom, and as we continue down that path, you know, I think it's important for us to mirror what's being done in the schools. And I think as long as we take appropriate precautions and make sure that the public is, whether it's seated to observe or to make comment, that they're, you know, the appropriate distance away. I mean, and I think, you know, I remember in the good old days when before the pandemic, we would often have groups come in and present about different things. We might have like a group of, you know, LASSO students come in. You know, I think as long as we sort of hold off on those, or we're bringing in lots of people, and, you know, we just limit it to people making public comment or people observing, and just for now we'll have to just hold off on some of those presentations that we've done in the past, just to limit our participants. But I think it's reasonable, and I feel that, you know, we'll take the proper precautions, and it's also just sort of being in solidarity with our teachers and our staff.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Vice Chair Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think one other point to consider too is there's an access issue, and I think by allowing people to attend in person or electronically, that just opens up more opportunities for people who maybe aren't comfortable using Zoom or don't have access, whatever the reason. But I think just allowing in person, if that person really feels like they want to make a statement, will also address any equity or access issues as well.
Mr. Webb.
Before making comments on that area, what would the category
Dr. Nina, I think just to make sure, I'm checking here with Mr. Ridinger, who has said he can hear, but it would be good if Dr. Dimmick and I projected a bit more, so we can see that. And just making sure. So the question is, what would be the capacity at this point?
We would need to figure that out. If we kept this set up here, we could utilize this portion of the room, and we could utilize that portion of the room. We could set it up so that everybody's 6 feet apart. And we would do, we could do temperature checks if people came in the building. It just would take us some time to figure out what the capacity is. But I would venture to guess that in a space sort of from here to the front, knowing that that's about the size of the classroom, probably anywhere from 12 to 15 people on that side, and maybe 12 to 15 on this side. So one of the things that you might want to consider is limiting capacity to just the number of people that actually could fit. If you wanted to use both sides or just one side, or just the rear, however you all wanted to look at that.
Thanks. Mr. Russell, I'll go back to you in just a second. I just want to make sure.
Yes, I follow. Okay. committee. I do agree that, as folks start to come back, I do think we should get some level of, we're doing some of that as well ourselves as board members. But I do want to know what the capacity would be. And I would say, without doing just talk about, where it would be. My preference is to be to the rear. I wouldn't necessarily want to behind either side of it, but it would be, the rear, but, in general, supportive of it, but just wanted to what number of folks we're gonna bring back.
Okay.
What level?
Vice Chair Russell, you had, sorry.
Yeah, I guess first of all, with regard to Mr. Webb's statement, I would like to throw out there that we start with a relatively small number, like 10, and see what the demand is, and if we need to consider adjusting that upward, then we consider it. But I think just putting a manageable cap on it at the beginning would make me more comfortable. The second thing that I wanted to mention was something more procedural, and that would be that within the operations aspect of it, that we put a time that people have to arrive by. So let's say that people must arrive by 6:50 p.m. in order to make sure that they have the temperature checks and go through the appropriate protocols, and that way staff can also be in place for the meeting by 7. So I think that we say that 6:50, anyone who's not here by 6:50 will be turned away, would be reasonable, given that we want to make sure, again, that protocols are done, but also staff is able to attend the meeting at a time.
Thanks. Mr. Reitinger, you haven't made a comment yet, so I'm looking towards you if you want to.
I guess the only thing, Chair, that I'd raise is I think some thought needs to be given to the enforcement protocols, in the sense that we haven't ever had to worry about what we're going to do in the event of a disruptive person making public comments. I think the risk is at least slightly higher that someone might come in and not obey the right ordinances. So they're not saying we need a police officer present in the meetings or anything, but there needs to be a plan for what to do if somebody fails to obey safety protocols and does not follow instructions of chair or staff, posing a risk to the people attending the meeting.
Thanks, Mr. Reitinger. Dr. Newman.
To that point, and thank you, Mr. Redding, for raising that. I think we would likely keep Securitas in place and extend their hours, not unlike we did the other night for the public hearing, which could be part of our standard routine and process. And we can pour a little bit of money towards that to have that person in place. That wouldn't be the person that would necessarily do the temperature checking and the like, but they would be here in case there was a need to call for additional help and support.
Mr. Reitinger, did that answer the question that you raised, or at least sort of start toward an answer?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I don't have a particular proposal, just that we need a plan for what we're going to do, and that sounds like a plan.
Okay, thank you. So what I'm hearing is most people are comfortable with a limited number of people being able to attend in person, but not everybody. But that starting small seems to be an idea. Would starting small go anywhere toward addressing your concerns?
I would appreciate that. We all have different conceptions of risk, and it just seems to me why increase risk if we don't have.
So then, sorry, Jason, you have a comment.
It's not necessarily associated with Dr. Dimick's comment, so I'll reserve until that piece is over.
Okay, thanks. So what I'm sort of then sensing is that there's at least a reasonable level of consensus that we could move to a model where we allow a small number of people to be able to be attending physically, but we also continue to have it open on Zoom and that people could make comments. Is that a fair sort of summary of the average of everybody's sort of perspective? Anyone?
I do just have kind of one question. I'm just thinking about public comment, and if most people who are coming in are only coming in to make their comment and leave versus if people are planning to stay. Because it seems like if there's a number of people who just want to make a comment, they could come in and go. I don't really know how we sort of figure that out, even if it's just an asking them, you plan to stay. Because it seems definitely we should limit the number of people who are here, sitting in here with us. But, people want to come in and make a comment and leave, it could affect a little bit bigger number. So I don't really know how we balance that, just a thought.
So I gave a little thought idea myself. So if the idea is we want to allow public comment both in person potentially and via Zoom, and we want to have a maximum duration for which we're doing this, we need a registration process, and that's it makes sense that you would have the same registration process deal with the situation when somebody wants to come in person and on Zoom, because otherwise how do you know what the total number of comments? So it would seem we could ask, registration form could be in principle set up to ask, would you like to attend the meeting? Do you want to make public comment, or the opposite order? If you want to make public comment, do you also want to attend in person? That's there, because the other thing we need to know is if they're not coming in person, we need to be able to give them the link to be able to come in. We would have to know whether that person wants to speak. Am I missing an obvious? I want to make sure I'm understanding. All right, Dr. Noonan, you had a different.
I had two comments. One is I'm getting some feedback that we just continue to need to speak up. And the second is with respect to the governor's order, I do think actually we could continue to take public comment, but just put it in on the website. So as opposed to not taking any public comment, we would still welcome public comment, but then put it in if that's acceptable. I think we're going to have to continue to take public comment.
So you're thinking during the work session?
During the work session, as long as we're under governor's orders, I think we still have to take public comment, but we don't have to read it. We can just put it out, put it up.
Okay, so that would be a modification to say we have live public comment during the meeting, but not live public comment during the work sessions. We just accept written comments and it gets posted before that.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. So generally, the rest of the idea, I'm not hearing anybody object to the concept that we want to allow live talk. Is that accurate? By Zoom, in person, we want to do that? What do people think about the idea of setting aside a specific period of time at the beginning of the meeting? We've been doing 30 minutes. That was for that. Just share with you all how people feel about that.
Usually before the pandemic, was it open-ended? We didn't have a limit, is that correct?
That's correct. And that's the difference. I think because we are under the emergency order, we are in the pandemic, putting a limit seems like a mitigation strategy.
We're actually going to cut that mic off.
Okay.
And ask you to turn your mics back on your computer. Let's get out here.
Yes, I can hear you. I don't hear anything.
Can you hear me now?
Now I can.
Okay. I was just going to say, so can we turn that down, that speaker? Actually, we can turn that speaker off. We're going to work this out. Now, can you hear me, Ms. Goodell?
Very clearly.
Okay. Could you hear Marty coming through yours? Oh, you can turn your sound back on.
We all turn our sound.
Yeah, go ahead and turn your sound back on.
And then when we talk, we
Just unmute, kind of like we have. Yep.